Queen Vera stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, watching the twin suns set over her beautiful world. The towers of her capital city sparkled like diamonds in the fading light. Her people, the Azurians, had built everything from pure crystal that could bend and shape light itself. It was a sight that never failed to fill her with pride. Vera was young for a queen, only 35 years old in Earth terms. Her skin had a soft blue glow that marked her as royal blood, and her silver hair flowed like liquid metal down her back. She had ruled the Azuran Empire for 10 years, ever since her parents died in an accident involving a terraforming experiment gone wrong. The Azurians were a peaceful people. They had given up war 300 years ago, choosing instead to focus on art, science, and making their worlds more beautiful. They could control energy itself, bending it to grow crops, power their cities, and reshape entire planets. But they had forgotten how to fight. This was why Vera felt nervous about the reports coming from the Outer Rim. A species called the Corvins had been expanding their territory, taking over small worlds and enslaving the people they found. But Vera's advisors told her not to worry. The Corvins were far away, and surely they could be reasoned with if they ever came this direction. Vera was thinking about these troubles when her advisor, Minister Kal, approached her on the balcony. "Your Majesty," Kal said with a bow. "The human delegation has arrived." Vera nodded. She had been expecting them. Humans were a relatively new species in galactic politics, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. But they had proven to be excellent traders and diplomats. They wanted to establish formal relations with the Azuran Empire, offering new technologies and cultural exchanges. "Send them to the main reception hall," Vera said. "I will meet them shortly." The reception hall was one of the most beautiful rooms in the palace. The walls were made of living crystal that could show images from across the empire. Vera had programmed it to display scenes of peaceful Azurian worlds, farmers in crystal fields, children playing in gardens that floated in the air, artists creating sculptures from pure light. When Vera entered the hall, she saw 3 humans waiting for her. 2 of them looked like typical diplomats, well-dressed, serious, carrying data tablets and official documents. But the third one caught her attention immediately. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and kind brown eyes. Unlike the others, he wore simple clothes, just a plain shirt and pants. While the diplomat stood formally, he was examining one of the crystal art pieces on the wall with genuine curiosity and wonder. "Your Majesty," the lead diplomat said, bowing deeply. "I am Ambassador Wilson, and this is my aide, Ms. Chen. And this is Ben Torres, our agricultural specialist." Ben Torres turned from the art piece and smiled at Vera. It was not the practiced smile of a diplomat, but something warm and real. He bowed, but not too deeply, as if he was greeting a friend rather than a queen. "It's an honor to meet you, Your Majesty," Ben said. "Your world is incredible. I've never seen anything like these crystal formations." Vera found herself smiling back. "Thank you, Mr. Torres. Perhaps later you would like a tour of our agricultural districts. I understand you are interested in farming." "I would love that," Ben replied, his eyes lighting up. The formal negotiations went well. The humans offered new crop varieties that could grow in Azurian soil, plus advanced water purification systems. In return, the Azurians would share their crystal growing techniques and energy manipulation knowledge. It was a fair trade that would benefit both species. But Vera found herself more interested in Ben Torres than in the political discussions. During breaks in the negotiations, she would catch him wandering the palace gardens, carefully examining the plants and asking thoughtful questions about how they grew. "On Earth, we have to work hard to make things grow," Ben told her one afternoon as they walked through a garden where flowers made of living light bloomed among regular plants. "But here, you make it look like art." "It is art," Vera said. "We believe that growing food should be beautiful as well as practical." Ben nodded thoughtfully. "I like that philosophy. On my homeworld, I have a small farm. Nothing fancy, just vegetables and some fruit trees. But I try to make it beautiful too. You are a farmer? Vera asked, surprised. Most diplomatic specialists came from universities or government agencies. Ben laughed. I suppose I'm many things. I studied agricultural science, but I also love stories and poetry. The diplomatic corps recruited me because I understand how different species think about food and land use. Over the next several days, Vera spent more and more time with Ben. She found him easy to talk to, unlike most of the officials and nobles in her court. He asked good questions about Azurian culture, but he also shared stories about human life that fascinated her. Humans seem to do everything the hard way, Vera observed one evening as they sat in her private garden. You told me your people still dig in dirt with metal tools, instead of using energy to shape the soil. We do, Ben agreed. But there's something satisfying about working with your hands, feeling the earth between your fingers. It connects you to the land in a way that I think technology can't replace. Vera had never thought of farming as anything but an application of scientific principles. But the way Ben described it made it sound like a form of meditation, a way of understanding the world. Would you show me, she asked. How humans farm? Ben smiled. I'd be happy to. But it might get your royal robes dirty. Vera laughed. I think I can handle a little dirt. The next day, Ben set up a small plot in the palace gardens using traditional human farming methods. Vera knelt beside him in the soil, learning to plant seeds by hand and water them with simple tools. Her advisors were horrified to see their queen with dirt under her fingernails, but Vera didn't care. She had never had so much fun. You're a natural, Ben said as Vera carefully planted a row of tomato seeds. These should grow well in your climate. It feels strange, Vera admitted. But good. Like I'm connected to something ancient. All intelligent species started with agriculture, Ben said. Before we had technology, we had to understand the land to survive. I think that connection never really goes away. As the weeks passed, Vera realized she was falling in love. Ben was unlike anyone she had ever met. He was intelligent but not arrogant, curious but not pushy. He treated her like a person rather than a title, and he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions rather than just trying to impress her. The official negotiations concluded successfully, but Ben asked permission to stay longer to study Azurian farming methods. Vera was happy to grant this request. I feel like I'm learning something important here, Ben told her. Not just about plants, but about a different way of seeing the world. You could stay permanently, Vera said one evening as they watched the sunset from her favorite balcony. If you wanted to. Ben looked at her seriously. Are you asking me to stay, or offering me a job? I'm asking you to stay, Vera said, her heart racing. With me. Ben was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. I was hoping you might say that. I love you, Vera. I love you too, she replied. They were married 3 months later in a ceremony that was broadcast across both human and Azurian space. It was more than just a wedding, it was the formal alliance between two species. Ben gave up his human citizenship to become an Azurian royal, while Vera opened permanent trade and cultural exchange programs with Earth. The wedding was beautiful. Ben wore traditional Azurian ceremonial robes that shimmered with embedded crystals, while Vera's dress was made of living light that shifted colors with her emotions. When they exchanged vows, the crystal walls of the palace began to glow, responding to the joy of everyone present. After the ceremony, Ben settled into life as a royal consort. He continued his agricultural work, establishing experimental farms across the empire. He also started a cultural exchange program, teaching Azurian children about human literature and storytelling. Vera's advisors had been skeptical about her marrying an alien, but Ben won them over quickly. He was respectful of Azurian traditions while bringing fresh ideas to old problems. He helped design new cities that blended human and Azurian architectural styles, creating spaces that were both beautiful and practical. In the evenings, Ben would tell Vera stories about Earth, tales of heroes and adventures, love and loss, triumph and tragedy. Vera had never heard anything like human mythology, with its focus on individuals overcoming impossible odds through determination and sacrifice. Human stories are so violent, she observed one night after Ben finished telling her about the Trojan War. Why do your people tell tales about fighting? Ben considered this. I think it's because humans have always had to fight for survival. Our planet is dangerous, and we've had to struggle against nature, predators, and each other. Those struggles shaped who we are. But surely you've moved past that now, Vera said. Your people seem peaceful in our interactions. We try to be, Ben said carefully. But the capacity for violence is still there, buried deep. We hope we never have to use it. Vera nodded, but she didn't really understand. The Azurians had been peaceful for so long that they could barely imagine what violence looked like. Meanwhile, the reports from the Outer Rim were getting worse. The Corvins had conquered another dozen worlds, enslaving entire populations and stripping planets of their resources. They seemed to be moving in a rough line toward the core systems, which included both human and Azurian territory. We should send diplomats, Vera told her council. Perhaps we can negotiate with them, find out what they want. Your Majesty, Minister Call said carefully, the species that have tried to negotiate with the Corvins have all been destroyed. They don't seem interested in talking. Everyone can be reasoned with, Vera insisted. We just need to find the right approach. Ben had been quiet during these council meetings, but Vera noticed that he often excused himself afterward to make private communications with human space. When she asked him about it, he said he was just keeping Earth informed about the political situation. My people like to stay current on galactic events, he explained. It helps with our trade and diplomatic planning. Vera accepted this explanation. Ben had never given her any reason to doubt his honesty, and she trusted him completely. As their first year of marriage passed, Vera felt happier than she had ever been. Ben was a wonderful husband, kind, thoughtful, and endlessly interested in her world and her people. He had started learning to manipulate crystal energy, though he claimed he was terrible at it. Vera found his attempts endearing rather than frustrating. I think your hands are too used to working with dirt, she teased him one day as he struggled to shape a small crystal sculpture. You're trying to force it instead of guiding it. Maybe, Ben agreed with a laugh. Or maybe humans just aren't meant to work with living crystal. We're more comfortable with dead materials, metal, stone, things we can hammer into shape. Vera didn't think much of this comment at the time. Later, she would remember it and understand its significance. The Corvin threat continued to grow, but it still seemed distant and manageable. Vera's military advisors, what few of them existed, assured her that the crystal defense satellites around Azurian worlds would be enough to deter any attack. The Corvins might be aggressive, but they weren't stupid enough to attack such a well-defended empire. Ben agreed with this assessment. I'm sure diplomacy will work in the end, he told Vera. It usually does, if you're patient enough. Vera nodded, feeling reassured. Her husband was a wise man who understood galactic politics. If he wasn't worried, then perhaps she was being overly concerned. She had no idea that Ben Torres was not the simple farmer and diplomat he appeared to be. She had no idea that his casual communications with human space were actually detailed military intelligence reports. And she had no idea that her gentle, poetry-loving husband had once been called the most dangerous tactical mind in human space. The peaceful deception was perfect. Even Vera, who loved Ben more than life itself, had no idea who she had really married. 2 years had passed since Queen Vera's marriage to Ben Torres. The royal couple had settled into a comfortable life together, with Ben continuing his agricultural work while helping Vera manage the Empire's growing trade relationships with dozens of species across the galaxy. Their morning routine had become precious to both of them. They would wake early and walk through the palace gardens while the twin suns rose, discussing everything from crop rotation schedules to poetry. Ben had learned enough Azurian to compose simple verses in their ancient style, which always made Vera laugh with delight. "Your pronunciation is getting better," Vera said one morning as Ben recited a poem about crystal flowers. "Though you still sound like you have rocks in your mouth when you say the word fourth beauty." Ben grinned. "Maybe that's fitting, since I'm just a simple human who works with dirt and stone." Vera shook her head. "You're much more than that, and you know it. My advisors ask for your opinion on everything these days. Minister Call says you have the best understanding of interspecies trade patterns he's ever seen." "I just pay attention," Ben said modestly. "And I listen to what people tell me." They were interrupted by the sound of running footsteps. Minister Call appeared around the corner of the garden path, his usually calm face twisted with panic. Behind him came General Knox, the head of Azurian Planetary Defense, along with several other high-ranking officials. "Your Majesty," Call gasped, struggling to catch his breath. "We need you in the command center immediately. Something terrible has happened." Vera felt her heart sink. She had been dreading this moment for months, as reports of Corvan expansion had grown more frequent and more violent. "Is it the Corvans?" "Yes, Your Majesty," General Knox replied grimly. "They've attacked 3 of our outer colonies. Taylor, Prism, and New Azure. All 3 worlds went silent 6 hours ago." Vera's blood turned cold. Those 3 worlds housed nearly 10 million Azurians. "What do you mean, silent?" "All communication has stopped," Call explained as they hurried toward the palace command center. "No response to any of our calls. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures around each planet, consistent with orbital bombardment." The command center was a large room filled with crystal displays that could show information from anywhere in the Empire. When Vera arrived, the screens were showing static where the 3 colony worlds should have been. Technicians worked frantically at their stations, trying to re-establish contact. "What are our options?" Vera asked, though she dreaded the answer. General Knox looked uncomfortable. "Your Majesty, our defensive capabilities are limited. We have the satellite networks around each world, but they're designed to stop small raids, not a full military assault. Our ships are exploration and trade vessels, not warships." "But surely we can negotiate," Vera said desperately. "The Corvans must want something. Resources, territory, trade agreements. We can give them whatever they need without violence." One of the technicians looked up from his station. "Your Majesty, we're receiving a transmission from the Corvan fleet. They're demanding to speak with you directly." "Put it on the main screen," Vera ordered. The display flickered, then showed the image of a creature that made Vera's stomach turn. The Corvan leader was massive, covered in dark scales, with 6 arms and teeth like metal spikes. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "Azurian Queen," the creature growled. "I am War Commander Thok of the Corvan hegemony. Your 3 worlds have been claimed by our empire. Your people there are now our slaves. You have 2 days to surrender your entire territory, or we will destroy every world you control." "Wait," Vera said quickly. "We can discuss this. Surely there's something we can offer you that would make war unnecessary. We have advanced technology, beautiful worlds, resources." War Commander Thok laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "We take what we want, little Crystal Queen. We do not negotiate with prey." 2 days. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. 10 million people, Vera whispered. "Are they really all?" "We don't know, Your Majesty," General Knox said gently. "But the Corvan pattern on other worlds has been complete occupation. They keep populations alive to work as slaves." Vera sank into her command chair, overwhelmed. Her people had lived in peace for 3 centuries. They had forgotten how to fight, how to protect themselves. The satellite defenses around their core worlds might slow the Corvans down, but they wouldn't stop a determined assault. "How long until they reach the capital system?" she asked. "At their current speed, about 5 days," a technician reported. And how many ships do they have? Long-range sensors detect at least 300 vessels, Your Majesty. All heavily armed. Vera looked around the room at her advisors and officers. She could see the fear in their eyes. They were good people, intelligent and capable, but none of them knew how to fight a war. Ben, she said suddenly, turning to her husband. What do you think we should do? But Ben wasn't there. She looked around the command center, confused. He had been right behind her when they entered the room. Where's my husband? She asked. Minister Call looked around. I don't know, Your Majesty. He was here a moment ago. One of the technicians spoke up. I saw him leave through the side exit when the Corvan transmission started. He seemed to be in a hurry. Vera felt a stab of hurt. This was the moment when she needed Ben's calm wisdom and support, and he had simply left without a word. But there wasn't time to think about that now. Her empire was in deadly danger. We need to contact every available ship, she ordered. Merchant vessels, exploration ships, anything that can fly. Start evacuating the outer worlds and moving people toward the core systems. For the next several hours, Vera threw herself into crisis management. She coordinated evacuation fleets, spoke with planetary governors across the empire, and tried to come up with some kind of defense plan. But as the day wore on, it became increasingly clear that the Azurians were helpless against a species that lived for war. It was nearly midnight when Ben finally returned to their private quarters. Vera was pacing the floor, exhausted and terrified, when he walked through the door. Where have you been? She demanded. I needed you today, and you just disappeared. Ben looked tired, but there was something different about him. His usual relaxed posture was gone, replaced by something more focused and alert. I'm sorry, Vera. I had to make some calls. Calls? Ben, my empire is about to be destroyed, and you were making calls? Yes, Ben said quietly. Important ones. Vera, sit down. We need to talk. Something in his tone made her stop pacing. She sat on the edge of their bed, watching him carefully. He seemed like a stranger suddenly, all traces of the gentle farmer gone from his manner. I haven't been completely honest with you, Ben began. About who I am, I mean. About my background. Vera felt her heart start to race. What do you mean? Ben was quiet for a long moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. Do you remember the stories I told you about human mythology? About warriors and battles and heroes who fought impossible odds? Yes, but what does that have to do with? Those aren't just stories, Vera. They're part of what makes humans human. We've been fighting for survival for thousands of years. And some of us got very, very good at it. Vera stared at him. Ben, what are you saying? 22 years ago, humanity fought a war against a species called the Xerian Collective. They were conquerors, like the Corvans. They attacked Earth's colonies without warning, enslaved millions of people, and almost destroyed human civilization. Vera had never heard of this war. But humans are peaceful traders. That's what everyone says. We are, Ben agreed. Most of the time. But when we have to fight, we fight differently than other species. We don't just defend ourselves. We win. I don't understand. What does this have to do with you leaving today? Ben sat down beside her on the bed. The war against the Xerians was won by a single human strategist. Someone who could see patterns that others missed, who could predict enemy movements and turn their strengths against them. The Xerians called him the Ghost of Proxima, because he seemed to appear everywhere at once, always one step ahead of them. Vera felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in Ben's voice, a quiet certainty that frightened her. After the war ended, Ben continued, this strategist disappeared. He gave up his military rank, left his homeworld, and became a farmer. He wanted to live a peaceful life, to never have to think about war again. Ben, Vera whispered, though she was starting to understand. The calls I made today were to every human military commander in known space, Ben said quietly. I told them that the ghost of Proxima was back, and that we have a war to fight. Vera stood up so quickly that she nearly fell. You're him. You're the ghost of Proxima. Ben nodded. My real name is Benjamin Torres Martinez, former Fleet Admiral of the 3rd Human Defense Force. I commanded the liberation of 47 worlds and the complete destruction of the Xerian war machine. Vera backed away from him, her mind reeling. You lied to me. Everything you told me, everything we built together, it was all a lie. No, Ben said firmly, standing to face her. My love for you is real. My desire for peace is real. I really did give up war, Vera. I really did just want to be a farmer and tell stories and grow old with the woman I love. But you're a warrior. A killer. I was, Ben corrected. I hoped I would never have to be again. But the Corvins have made that impossible. Vera felt tears streaming down her face. How could you not tell me? How could you let me marry you without knowing who you really were? Ben's expression softened. Because I was afraid you wouldn't love the man I used to be. The ghost of Proxima did terrible things, Vera. Necessary things, but terrible. I thought that part of my life was over forever. Before Vera could respond, her personal communicator chimed with an urgent message. She looked at the display and gasped. What is it? Ben asked. Human ships, Vera said in amazement. Dozens of them, just appeared at the edge of our system. They're requesting permission to establish defensive positions. Ben nodded. That would be the 5th Fleet. They were the closest unit. The others will arrive tomorrow. Others? Vera, by tomorrow night, there will be over 400 human warships defending your empire. Every available vessel in human space is coming. Vera stared at him. Why? We're not part of the Human Federation. We're just allies. Ben reached out and gently touched her face. Because you're my wife. And because hurting you means going to war with humanity. The implications of what he was saying slowly sank in. You planned this. The marriage, the alliance, all of it. You were preparing for the Corvins even then. I suspected they would come this way eventually, Ben admitted. Human intelligence had been tracking their expansion pattern. But the marriage wasn't planned, Vera. That was real. I fell in love with you the moment I saw you examining those crystal art pieces. Vera didn't know what to think or feel. The gentle man she had married was revealed to be one of the most dangerous military minds in the galaxy. Everything she thought she knew about him had changed in a single conversation. What happens now? She asked. Ben's expression became cold and distant, and for a moment she could see the legendary strategist behind his kind eyes. Now, the Corvins learn what happens when you threaten someone humanity loves. Outside the palace windows, human warships began taking positions in the space around Azurian worlds, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had never been designed for peace. The war was about to begin. The morning after Ben's revelation, Queen Vera stood in the command center watching something she had never seen before. Human warships moved through space around her worlds like a deadly dance, each vessel taking precise positions that created an intricate web of defensive coverage. I count 437 ships, General Knox reported, his voice filled with amazement. They arrived throughout the night from every direction. I've never seen such coordination. Vera watched the tactical display, trying to understand the pattern. The human ships weren't simply surrounding the planets like the Azurian defense satellites. Instead, they formed complex geometric shapes that seemed to shift and change every few minutes. What are they doing? She asked. Ben stood beside her, but he looked different now. Gone was the relaxed posture and gentle smile she had come to love. His shoulders were straight, his eyes sharp and calculating. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority she had never heard before. They're creating kill zones, Ben explained calmly. Any ship approaching our worlds will have to pass through at least 3 overlapping fields of fire. But more importantly, they're making it impossible for the enemy to predict where our main force is located. The Corvan fleet will arrive in 6 hours, Minister Call reported from his station. Long-range sensors show they're maintaining their original course and speed. Good, Ben said. Overconfidence is a weakness we can use. Vera studied her husband's profile. You really are him, aren't you? The ghost of Proxima. Ben nodded without looking away from the tactical display. I tried to leave that person behind, Vera. I wanted to be just Ben Torres, farmer and storyteller. But sometimes the galaxy doesn't let you choose who you need to be. A communication signal came through from the human fleet. Admiral Torres Martinez, a voice said. This is Captain Rodriguez of the flagship Defiant. All units are in position and ready for your orders. Admiral. Vera still couldn't quite believe it. Her gentle husband who wrote poetry about crystal flowers was actually a fleet admiral. Thank you, Captain, Ben replied. Maintain current positions. Remember, we're not just defending these worlds. We're sending a message to anyone else who might think about threatening our allies. Understood, sir. It's good to have you back in command. Ben closed the communication and turned to Vera. I need to coordinate the defense from the fleet command ship. Will you come with me? Vera hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay on her homeworld, to be with her people if the worst happened. But another part of her needed to understand who Ben really was, to see the legendary strategist in action. Yes, she said finally. I'll come. The shuttle ride to the human flagship was tense and quiet. Vera watched through the windows as they passed between the massive human warships. Each vessel was dark gray and angular, built for function rather than beauty. They looked nothing like the elegant Azurian ships with their crystal hulls and flowing lines. Your ships are so different from ours, Vera observed. Human ships are designed for war, Ben replied. We learned long ago that pretty things die quickly in battle. Everything on these vessels exists for one purpose, to destroy the enemy before they can destroy us. The flagship Defiant was enormous, easily twice the size of any Azurian vessel. When they boarded, Vera was struck by how different it felt from her crystal palace. The corridors were narrow and efficient, the lighting was harsh and bright, and everything was made of metal and composite materials that would never break or bend. The bridge was a large room filled with dozens of workstations. Human officers moved efficiently between the stations, their voices calm and professional as they coordinated the movements of hundreds of ships. At the center of it all was Captain Rodriguez, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez said, standing as Ben and Vera entered. Welcome aboard. Thank you, Captain, Ben replied. What's our current status? All units report ready. The Corvan fleet is maintaining course. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours and 20 minutes. Ben nodded and moved to a large tactical display that showed the entire system. With quick, confident gestures, he began adjusting ship positions and setting up attack patterns. Vera watched in fascination as the complex web of human ships reformed itself according to his commands. You see this formation here? Ben pointed to a cluster of ships near the outer edge of the system. These are our fastest vessels. When the Corvans arrive, they'll see what looks like our main defensive line. But it's not. Vera asked. It's bait, Ben explained. The Corvans will focus their attack there, trying to break through what they think is our strongest position. While they're doing that, our real attack force will hit them from 3 directions they're not expecting. Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly. Classic Ghost of Proxima tactics. Make the enemy think they understand your plan, then do something completely different. Over the next few hours, Vera watched Ben coordinate the defense with a skill that took her breath away. He seemed to think 10 steps ahead of everyone else, anticipating problems before they occurred and adjusting his plans accordingly. But what impressed her most was how he treated his officers. Despite his legendary reputation, he listened to their suggestions and incorporated their ideas into his strategy. "Admiral," one of the younger officers said. "The Corvan fleet has entered the outer system. They're moving in a standard attack formation." "Show me," Ben ordered. The main display shifted to show the approaching Corvan ships. There were 300 of them, arranged in a massive wedge formation designed to punch through enemy defenses. At the center of the formation was a ship twice the size of the others, bristling with weapons. War Commander Thok's flagship, Captain Rodriguez identified. "Intelligence reports say it's heavily shielded and carries enough firepower to level a planet." "Not anymore," Ben said quietly. "Signal all units. Operation Broken Spear is now active." Vera watched as the human ships began to move. The formation that had looked random and scattered suddenly revealed its true purpose. Ships that had seemed out of position were actually perfectly placed to execute Ben's plan. The Corvans took the bait exactly as Ben had predicted. Their fleet accelerated toward the human ships at the system's edge, weapons charging for what they expected to be a quick and decisive battle. War Commander Thok even sent a taunting message. "Human cowards," Thok's voice boomed across the communication channels. "Did you really think your tiny fleet could protect these crystal weaklings? We will crush you, then enslave your worlds as well." Ben's expression didn't change. "Captain Rodriguez, please respond to War Commander Thok." "What should I tell him, Admiral?" "Tell him that humans don't surrender," Ben said calmly. "And we don't forgive." The battle began with the Corvans charging straight into the outer defensive line. But instead of standing and fighting, the human ships scattered in what looked like panic. The Corvan fleet pursued, spreading out to chase down the fleeing vessels. "They're falling for it," Captain Rodriguez observed. "Of course they are," Ben replied. "Aggressive species always make the same mistake. They assume that running away means fear, when sometimes it means strategy." As the Corvan fleet spread out across the system, pursuing what they thought were fleeing humans, Ben's real plan became clear. The scattered human ships weren't running randomly. They were leading the Corvans into carefully prepared kill zones where other human vessels waited in ambush. "Now," Ben ordered. What happened next was like nothing Vera had ever seen. The fleeing, human ships suddenly reversed course and began attacking their pursuers. At the same time, ships that had been hidden behind asteroids and moons revealed themselves and opened fire. The Corvan fleet found itself surrounded and outnumbered, attacked from directions they hadn't even known existed. "How?" Vera whispered, watching the tactical display as Corvan ships began disappearing one by one. "Humans don't fight like other species," Ben explained. "Most galactic civilizations see war as a contest of strength against strength. But humans learned long ago that the strongest warrior doesn't always win. The smartest one does." The battle was over in less than an hour. The mighty Corvan war fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was completely destroyed. War Commander Thok's flagship was the last to fall, surrounded by human vessels and pounded until its shields collapsed and its weapons went silent. But Ben wasn't finished. As the debris from the Corvan fleet drifted through space, he opened a communication channel to the entire galaxy. "This is Admiral Benjamin Torres Martinez of the Human Federation," he announced. "The Corvan hegemony has been defeated. Any species that threatens humanity's allies will face the same fate. We are a peaceful people, but we protect what we love." The message would reach every civilized world within days, carried by the galaxy's communication networks. The Corvans had been feared throughout the galaxy, and their complete destruction by a human fleet would send shockwaves across hundreds of systems. As the human ships began to form up for the journey home, Ben finally allowed himself to relax. The rigid military posture faded away, and Vera could see traces of the gentle farmer she had married returning to his face. "Is it over?" she asked. "Yes," Ben replied. "The Corvan threat is finished. And any other aggressive species will think twice before threatening your empire." Vera was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she had witnessed. Her husband had revealed himself to be one of the most brilliant military minds in the galaxy, capable of destroying entire fleets with nothing but strategy and coordination. But he had done it all to protect her and her people. "I'm sorry I lied to you," Ben said softly. "I know it must be hard to trust me now." Vera looked at him, seeing both the gentle farmer and the deadly admiral in his eyes. "You didn't lie about the important things. You love me. You want peace. You write terrible poetry in Azurian." Ben smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "My pronunciation really is awful, isn't it?" "Completely hopeless," Vera agreed. Then she became serious. "But you also love my people enough to risk your life for them. And you're strong enough to protect us when we can't protect ourselves. Does that mean you can forgive me?" Vera thought about everything she had learned. Ben had hidden his past, but he had done it because he genuinely wanted to leave war behind. When he was forced to become Admiral Torres Martinez again, he had done it not for glory or power, but to save the people he loved. "I don't need to forgive you," she said finally. "I need to thank you. And I need to learn to love all of who you are, not just the parts that are easy to understand." Ben pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in days, Vera felt truly safe. Her empire was protected, the galaxy was a little more peaceful, and she had a husband who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. "Can we go home now?" she asked. "I want to work in the garden with you. But this time, I want you to tell me stories about the real Benjamin Torres Martinez. Even the dark ones. Especially those," Vera said. "I want to understand the man who gave up everything for love, and who would take it all back up again to protect what matters most." As their shuttle flew back toward the crystal spires of the Azurian capital, Vera reflected on how much her understanding of love had grown. She had thought she was marrying a simple farmer who appreciated beauty and peace. Instead, she had married a warrior poet who could destroy fleets and write verses with equal skill. It was, she decided, a much more interesting marriage than she had originally planned.